All right, welcome back, everybody. So continuing our conversation with the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, after he announced his maiden budget yesterday, and lots of reactions coming through to the budget speech. Many people saying that this was a very friendly budget. It was, one that didn't rock the boat at all. It was to steady the ship, which is something that I think a lot of people are agreeing with. And we're just having a conversation with a lot of invited guests that are in the room, and of course, the Minister who has availed himself to us this morning. So again, Minister, thanks very, very much for allowing us to be here with you. And also, I know that there are a couple of community radio stations that are broadcasting this particular breakfast live. So we're very happy to have them in the room with us as well. And I'm hoping that their listeners are going to be posing questions to the Minister, and then we'll be able to ask them as well. So just a warm welcome to those that are listening on the community radio stations. Minister, I interrupted you just before we came. You were going to say something.
There's a piece of what Tony Arendach was asking, which I'd deal with. I don't want to rock my relationship. We come from the same union.
Oh, really? Okay.
We come from the same union. I was his Secretary General. So the public employment program, he says we've reduced the amount. Yes, of course. But we've increased the numbers of people. That's what I want to tell him about. We've increased the number. For instance, in that number, public Home Affairs is bringing in another 10,000 young people who are going to be utilized to digitize the Home Affairs. So the numbers are growing, and I want to assure him on that point. Although we've reflected, it was 11 billion, we've now made provision for 18 billion for that program over the next 2 years. But I want to assure him that there's a focus on delivering public employment, but in a qualitative way. That's why if we take the Home Affairs, in the next 2 years, you will have a pipeline of young people in 2 years who would have been trained on the ICT stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a matter where we're doing well.
Good.
I told journalists yesterday when they were said, no, relax. We're doing well.
There's a question coming from the lady at the table there. Hi, good morning. What is your name? Your question.
Morning. Thanks, Leanne. My name is Linda Makoma, and I am the president of the Association for the Advancement of Black Accountants in Southern Africa. Good morning, Honorable Minister. I think what we have today, and even from the question that was asked by the future of our country, is just about how we're going to make sure that these funds that we are talking about are going where they should be going. And mine is more of a comment and a message of support to you, Minister, to say thank you for your maiden budget speech and what you plan to do, but as an association with accountants and the bean counters, also to pledge support, because I think we raise a lot of the concerns, but also how about the solution? And I think organizations like ABASA do form part of that solution. So to you, Minister, also to pledge that support around dealing with some of the issues that are also in the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just say, there's somebody who I spend much time in my department debating and arguing with, sitting right on my left, Edgar Session. I'm coming to your point. We're fighting with him over the infrastructure. He comes to me angry, he's carrying a cup of coffee. He says, Minister, your problem is not money. I said, what's the problem? He says, your problem is capacity to deliver. I'm coming to you then, Abasa. I then said, what we should do, he says, why don't we ask if one company, just say a big company, said, build all the schools. I looked at him. He says, you know what? Your problem is going to your clan. And my clan is my party. My clan is going to my party. He says, We try to do with PPEs. We organize one company, Imperial, to do all of those things. You know what happened? Your clan revolted. So what I'm I'm narrating the story, but I'm coming to a point, Linda. And that point is, in order for us to deliver this, including the infrastructure effectively, what we need to do is to mobilize the skilled base in our country. So, in discussing the same matter then on these schools with my counterpart, the Minister of Education, she then says, no, what we need is not a construction company, but a consulting and engineering companies to do something tanky, to be able to supervise the construction company, supervise everybody, but we need, in other words, I'm trying to say we want to change the delivery model we're using at the moment and bring those skills across the system. There may be areas where you are going to need accountants, there will be areas where you are going to need engineers, but the point is taken.
Imtiaz Suleiman, I know, is in the room. We'll get the mic to you now. Imtiaz, are you in the room? There you go. I want to talk to you, Imtiaz, as well, from Gift of the Givers. And obviously this is a lot to do with, Imtiaz, good to have you. I'm going to ask you for your response to the budget. And also, we know that Gift of the Givers has been doing a lot of work in the health sector, helping out disaster areas, helping where you can. What's missing? We know that the money goes, but you know, it's organizations like yours that step in to do the work that the health sector should already be doing. So this is the point of where we talk about the money gets allocated, but the service delivery doesn't happen. And this is where the problem comes in. Now, you work on the ground, you work with communities, you see what's going on. So I'm going to ask you for your views on what's happening.
Thank you, Leanne. Good morning, Minister. Congratulations on the budget. I just want to make some things in context. Given the difficulty that the Minister has faced in terms of state capture, the cost of the SOEs, COVID-19, the unrest in July, and the economic climate, the job losses, the decreased tax base, the failure of exporting to a large extent, all that has put a great burden on the country. And to come up the way you've come up, I don't think anybody could have come up with anything better. It's a huge achievement. And your honesty comes through, your integrity comes through. Leanne, before I answer those questions, we should not be looking at the budget only. We should look what's important for the development of the country. And that government can't do that alone. We need government together with the private sector as well as civil society to work together. You set the template, you're saying SOEs, you're putting tough love to them, you're creating more jobs. And the type of jobs I like are service-oriented jobs. For example, you want to bring 12,000 policemen into the service, which means you're fighting crime and you're creating jobs. By the same token, I would say in a lot of government sectors, we have too much of jobs which are not necessary. People may not be happy with that, but you can't have a chief director, a admin, another director, 6 people and nobody can sign the forms. And that delays service delivery, everything takes so long, it's bloated service, more money getting lost, we're wasting money. So as much as the unions are unhappy, we need to take off some of those jobs, they naturally leave, but we get jobs in other sectors which are service-oriented. Why is the health sector falling apart? We said we're doing lockdown on the 15th of March 2020. Well, that wasn't lockdown, it was declared as a national disaster. And on 27th of March, we said we're doing lockdown. We were probably the only country in the world that did a lockdown without a wave. So it was a premature lockdown that affected lots of jobs in the country. And we needed to say, and we said we're preparing the hospitals. We didn't prepare the hospitals. We didn't put oxygen points. We didn't put more staff. The hospitals were already overstretched. The workers were overstretched, the healthcare workers. They were exhausted before COVID. And in COVID, it was a disaster for them. Over 1,000 died. We didn't replace that. And still after COVID, we haven't replaced it. We've put a moratorium on job creation in the hospitals. So not job creation, it's not job creation. It's life saving, it's a necessity. We haven't done that. And the type of budgets that we have, we need to implement jobs in this kind of sector. Teachers, we lost 2,000 teachers. Are we replacing the teachers? It's service-oriented. There's no point having another 1,000 classrooms and you don't have teachers. We can put up all the equipment in hospitals, but you don't have the personnel to run it. It makes no sense. So we need to have budgets geared towards service orientation. Police, teachers, doctors, psychologists. And that's another point we've got to look at. We have all these different courses in universities. Which many of them are dead end? NSFES pays all this money. A student does honors, masters, PhD, and walks the street. Because our society doesn't cater for those type of jobs. Government is serious. We've got to sit with the private sector and sit with the universities and take a hard decision. Shut down those departments. They're not bringing any benefit. And increase the enrollment in departments where we can put jobs into the economy. We need many more psychologists. You go to the universities, they tell you out of 300 students, they're taking 21 for masters. 7 educational, 7 counseling, 7 clinical. The country is in a mess in terms of healthcare. If healthcare workers are asking for psychologists, can you imagine for the rest of the country? The police, the teachers, parents who have lost kids, kids who have lost parents. We need increased psychologists. This is job creation, what purpose-oriented. Yeah. We need to fix the system. And those are the kind of things I feel will make a huge contribution. You're right to see how ESCOM is using the money. We find there's inflated prices. A cancer machine in the private sector, you buy it for 20 million. In the public sector, the same machine you buy for 100 million. And this brings another point. Corporate societies, corporate companies are always there to say, government is corrupt. I have a question. Who corrupts government? The corporates have a huge role to play in corruption. That's why we have state capture. And we need to fix that system up. And this country needs morality, spirituality, values and ethics. You're right, you don't need money. You need these values to fix the system. And if that values are in place, we can fix the country. And as I said, we need to do this together. Whilst the government can't pay for doctors or healthcare workers and can't pay for infrastructure to schools and education, we call on the corporates in this country. And even for Mandela Day this year.
All right.
Let's spend all the money on infrastructure. Forget about food parcels and stationery and toys. Let's use all our money to fix the schools, hospitals, and infrastructure for Mandela Day this year. Thank you very much.
All right, Imtiaz, thank you. Sure, Minister, there was a lot said there. Do you want to respond?
Oh, let me start by saying, I think health workers have done a great deal for South Africa. On that score, we would all be in agreement. The enormous sacrifice they did in dealing with the pandemic is difficult to calculate the impact. In terms of personnel, both, I've made the point, starting in the medium-term budget policy statement, that the funding that has been utilized to bail out state-owned enterprise has had a huge impact on frontline functions such as health, education. The unfortunate part is that those services are delivered at a provincial level. And the unfortunate part then, the provinces carry the burden, and we all accuse them of being... But what we're trying to do, which we said in the medium-term budget policy statement we want to do, is to shift and redress that imbalance. We've already done that. If you look at the budget that we've presented now, we've said how much is going into provinces to deal with, for teachers, how much is going in for doctors, how much is in provinces. Gradually, we're beginning to shift resources in that direction. I think that is what this budget is attempting to do. But there's a broader question of corruption, which he has raised.
Yeah.
And I think we are also raising in the budget speech. And what we're saying, what we can do from a budget perspective is to ensure that the institutions that are intended to fight corruption are properly capacitated and resourced. That's what we're saying in the budget. But that is also corruption. To fight it requires a mobilization of society. Not only because, as Imtiaz is saying, there will be companies that are part who are corruptors. So what we need to do is a mobilization of society along a particular value system to ensure that all of us, not only, I was looking at a march one day by public servants marching for corruption. I was asking myself, but if these people say they're marching against corruption, but who's corrupt? Because the day-to-day work in government is done by them. So what we need to do is to make sure that civil servants themselves are organized, they can tell the truth, society, business, and everybody. Somebody who's, I'm not going to mention now, tells me a story that he was approached by a businessman who said, look, I've got a tender here, but these people say, this is the road, I must go and re-gravel a road in the middle of nowhere. But having got the tender 17 million, they said, give 2 million to this one and 2 million to that one, and take the rest and take a hike. And this guy says, can I go and put just a site so that somebody can, a building site so that somebody can see that I've done some work? They said, no. After rains, no one will see that. Just disappear. Now, if that businessman did not disclose that, nobody would have known about this corrupt activity in government. So, but what I'm trying to say is that it needs cooperation amongst all of ourselves to achieve, to deal with corruption. It's all very well for people to complain about corruption, but when we see it, we don't act. So we need to mobilize society around that issue.
Yeah.
The last point is that all of these things we're talking about, including growing the economy, cannot succeed unless there's a compact, a common vision amongst all of us who work together to achieve that. The president has said we need to finish that in 100, make sure that we can lock ourselves in the next 100 days between ourselves, business and labor and everybody, to say what is it that all of us are going to contribute to ensure that there's growth. I was saying to Martin last night, Martin Kingston, I was saying to him last night, how many days are left out of that 100? Because the two of us have got to make sure that that happens.
Yeah. Not many days. Yeah. They're flying past us. They're flying past us. And Minister, we're listening to everything you're saying. And, I suppose South Africans are very, very despondent. When you listen to what's happening on the ground and when you hear the day-to-day living, I'm going through the Twitter feed as well, and I'm seeing what South Africans are saying, that it's well and good that we're all sitting in this room having a breakfast, talking about these things and talking about the billions. And then we talk about the trillions that we actually owe. But then they look around and they look at their lived experience, and it's making no difference because only a certain group of people are just getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier and laughing in the face of poverty. I know that you say you've still got your house where you grew up and you came from and you understand poverty and you know what it's all about, but nothing's being done to fix it, and this is the problem. Firstly, jobs are not being created. I hope things will change. The reality is that roads are falling apart everywhere around the country. IT infrastructure is falling apart. The complaints of people wanting to renew something as simple as a driver's license, it doesn't work. And we keep throwing money at the problem and yet nothing gets done. The home affairs system, same thing. People are complaining. They're saying, we can't even do something as simple as that. The reality is that all of this money and our debt burden. Now, we saw the EFF marching to Parliament yesterday.
They're managing for a different matter. They were marching for me taking cheap money.
Oh, well, okay. We'll take what they said they're marching for. I mean, and this is the reality: is that we are in debt as a country to the tune of what 4.3 trillion, expected to move up to 5.4 trillion rand, and we want to develop infrastructure that's not coming, but we owe this much money. How are we going to do this? I know I've asked this to you in every angle that I possibly can, but I just feel like the answers are not coming through as to how we're going to manage this debt and still create jobs.
I mean, the issue is, I go back to Edgar's philosophy that the issue is not money. The issue is to get the right skills and do the right things. I accept that we sit here, we talk billions. Where I come from, we just want one or two things in my village. We just want fencing and a 3-kilometer road which you can travel. A 3-kilometer road. When it is raining and I'm in my village, I can't park my car in my house because that road can't go in. Now, what is required is what Martin and I and Linda from Abasa are talking about. How do we mobilize these skills using the resources that government has, shift also resources to go into local government? You know, local government, they've got 246,000 kilometers of road, local government. 246,000 kilometers of road. We give them 2 billion per annum for that. So what we need to do is also ourselves to be shifting resources in that direction. When I talk about it's not only man but skills to ensure that that happens. So I can't sitting here be defensive and say, sitting here, I appreciate the problem and I know it. I'm giving you an example where the road to my village, we only pray if there's a funeral that it won't rain because it's going to be difficult to get the body into the village. So those are practical lived experience people have. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. In the ANC, when we have these Zoom meetings, I normally use my background as that road to just prick everyone's conscience. So I understand the problem, but what is needed is for all of us, we don't all have answers, but what is going to be needed is a movement of these municipalities, provincial government, ourselves, the private sector, and get the thing done.
I'm going to get personal, but you're the Minister of Finance, and the road in your village looks like that. Why? Who should have fixed it, and why is it not fixed?
The municipality tells me they do, in all those villages, they do 7 per annum. All right? There are a lot of villages. I asked the question.
Good.
Because it belongs to the municipality. And the municipality says, no, we do 7 roads per annum. In your village, we did that one in 1 year. I can't remember what year. It goes in another direction. The one that it goes in your home will probably take another 7 years.
So I've worked something out here through everything we're saying. Would you agree, and to a certain extent, the blame lies in the municipalities and how they manage? Because you can make decisions on the top, but if it's not being implemented and followed through and given to South Africans the way it should be implemented, and sometimes the money gets given back unused.
Accept that.
And that's where the problem lies.
That too. The first one, no, maybe 3. The first one is a skills issue. All right? The first one is a skills issue. The second one, related to the skills issue, the money is not used. But the third one is corruption. The third one is corruption. It's a problem. So we've got to go down and attack all those 3. We know what the problem is. What we need to do is how are we going to deal with that problem.
Yeah. And that's where we're going to leave it.
I mean, let me just give you an example.
A very quick one, because we've got to say goodbye in 30 seconds.
No, fine.
Oh, no.
I was going to
Serious?
give, you know, like Mangaung in Bloemfontein, we've got a new leadership starting from November.
Yeah.
A new leadership from November is unstable with the new leadership. And if you look at it, it's got to do with the political problem in the area. Instead of looking at fixing potholes in Bloemfontein and so on, there's a council meeting to overthrow this one, a council meeting to overthrow that. So we've got to sometimes take a harsh view and deal with people.
And that could be said for the greater party in itself as well. And that's the note I'm leaving it on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Minister, what a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. Another hour coming on SABC News, but thanks so much to our SABC2 viewers. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.